everyone. Like Ray introduced, my name is Preetham Akula, and first of all, thank you for inviting me for this talk. This is actually first time I'm doing this in Australia. I've done talks like this in India, in Middle East, and few in Europe as well. But this is the first time I'm doing something in Australia. Unfortunately, it's went the other way around. So, to, okay, about me, yeah. Let me start by introducing again myself. As you know, I'm Preetham, and I'm the CEO and founder of the company Akula Tech. And this is not my first company. I've had, oh yeah, okay. I've been used to that, the ones that yeah, come with the earphones. So this is not my first company actually. I've had some experience running some companies before. I've helped build companies in food and beverage industry, clothing industry, education, something to do with STEM, more specifically, and space technology, of course, the one I'm running now. And I've got another one that does green energy based technologies as well. So I've had a experience of running these companies, I'd say, and it's been up and down journey, and I loved it so far. And that has built a passion in me for technologies that can impact our lives positively. So that's kind of what I've identified as my my passion and the love what I want to do. I'm also an aerospace engineering student at RMIT University. I've been a student for past 5 years. I've taken a break in between to build all my business experience. I'm still a student, so hopefully I'll graduate soon and I can call myself a graduated engineer. So yeah, that's a bit about myself. Those are my companies that I've built. Akula Tech is the one that I'm going to talk about today. The next one is Akula Energy, which is the green energy, hence the green color. Sciencebox is a STEM-based education company. So one of our goals is actually to improve involvement of women in STEM, and more even into research and PhD level of STEM education as well. Dropout Chaiwala is a food and beverage company. We've brought in famous Indian chai into Melbourne. We've kind of disrupted the coffee world that Melbourne is known for, and we've been going well so far about 2.5 years. We're just based in CBD here, so if you ever drop by, remember I've built that. And then got something called Dropout Designs. It's a clothing company. My family roots come from clothing industry, so I'm trying to carry on that legacy by running a clothing industry. I'm unfortunately not wearing any of our clothes now. Bit of a poor preparation for this event, but yeah, do check it out if you get time. It's quite suitable for Melbourne kind of area, the clothing and stuff. So yep, that's about me. And so I'm going to be talking today a bit away from the technology. I'm going to be talking a bit more about my experience. I'm going to be sharing my journey so far on how to build a venture. I would term it as it's a journey from research. It's a research to product journey. So that's what I see a company, a startup as. And to give a bit more, to give a bit more easier understanding, I'm going to use my own startup, Akula Tech, as an example to give you the understanding of this journey and my experience in that journey. So first, let me start with research. So like I've told, it's a journey research to production. Research, I believe, is a foundation for any technological venture, and in fact, any venture in general as well, not just technology. What happens as a part of research, or at least what did I do as a part of research while starting my company? The first point of the spark of inspiration, I can say, this is where the whole idea was born. I was just sitting one day in my university lab, just about here down the street, and thought, okay, why? What am I doing? What should I be doing? And then that's where the spark of inspiration came from. And of course, spark of inspiration was not enough. I wanted to just, arrive at a point where I know what I want to do. I know I wanted to build something. I wanted to build a startup or a company or something, but I had to identify a problem first or an opportunity first to build that. Of course, like the speakers just before mentioned, if it's a student team, it's much easier. I've got experience working in student teams. I was a founding team member of the RMIT rover team, which unfortunately is not doing good. Not a very brag of myself, but I was also part of Hive team, which is actually a very good team from RMIT, which launched a rocket. So I understand the difference between working in a student group where there's freedom of experimentation and no fear of failure versus working in a startup where I need to address an opportunity, make money, and keep my dream going. So that's where I identified an opportunity in space domain is satellite intelligence. So a lot of us, a lot of people in space industry now are talking about AI in space, AI in other aspects, satellites, usage of satellites for our day-to-day life. But I personally feel, and I've also our market research strongly suggests that the true intelligence in space industry has not been achieved yet, or at least it's still yet to be explored. And when I say intelligence, it's not just running a piece of code in space. You know, we don't want to run a kilobytes, let's say 20 kilobytes of code in space and say we achieved intelligence in space. We actually want to be able to run the intelligence to a level where it can make difference in some of the activities that happen on the earth. Could be, some sort of a decision making, or it could be some sort of understanding more about the earth. But we want to be able to deliver that full end to end intelligence using space. So that's what we as a company, or at least that's what me I wanted to do when I started my startup, to deliver the true intelligence using satellites in space. Now, of course, followed by is exploration and analysis. I've tried exploring a lot of companies that does stuff. I can list at least 50 companies that does different activities in space. Some of them are just there on the on the wall if you want to have a look. So I've researched. I've looked into what are they doing, what is their pain point, or what is the problem that they are addressing, and what's after that, or what's before that. Where did they come from? What's the story of their company? And then I try to analyze. Okay, where is this problem stemming from? Who's having this problem? Or how are they addressing the problem, and is it solved, or is it just partly solved, or is there more to it, or is there a better way of doing it? So that's the kind of analysis I've done. And unfortunately I had to do it alone because I didn't have a co-founder, or I didn't have someone working with me at that point. And but I tried to look at it from different perspectives. I tried to put myself into different shoes and understand from a client perspective, from a researcher perspective, from a startup founder perspective, and above all, I try to understand from a common community member perspective. Why does it matter to me? If I'm supposed to think as a common man, why what how does the work that these companies do, of the 50 plus companies, matter to me? So these are the kind of exploration and analysis I try to do of the current market. And I've also dived a bit deep into the research as well. I try to understand what research exists out there. And to my surprise, Australian research in space domain ranks top three in the world. The research that comes out of Australia in space domain is top three in the world. A lot of missions that NASA runs right now, a lot of payloads that NASA develops are based out of the research done by people from CSIRO, people from Monash, people from Melbourne Uni and RMIT. Being said that, it's also the case that Australian space community is not as on par as other country space community. We call it emerging, but there's a lot way to go. We can't call ourselves the next NASA. So, of course, it's a honest fact, yeah. So that's basically where I identified the opportunity. So there needs to be something done to get this research out into the market and be able to, you know, be able to provide a platform where this research can be commercialized. Like you just asked, if there's any commercializable research, yes, there is a lot, and I wanted to make sure my company is one such a company that can bring this research out into the market and actually put Australia where the other space agencies stand, NASA or ISRO or anything else. Then comes experimentation and prototyping. And this is not experimentation mean working with brushless motors, but this is experimentation with the society, with the community, with the students, with researchers, with investors. So this is more of a sociological and psychological experimentation that I've tried doing, and more of a business model prototyping that I've tried doing, where I try to understand where do I start, with what do I start, and what do I pitch to people, how do I convey my idea to people? Today, I've got a company, so I'm standing here and you guys are listening. But if I don't have a company, you would not. So that's I wanted to understand how do I put my idea to someone, being a no one, because when I stand in front of a, let's say, researcher saying that I want to commercialize the research, or I want to stand in front of an investor and say, okay, this is what I want your money for doing something. I wanted to, I tried prototyping different business pitches, different business models, different communication strategies in order to be able to catch their attention, in order to give life to my thoughts, and also in order to just make something happen. So that's what I did as a part of my research, and that's what laid foundation for my tech venture. I'm not saying this works for everyone, but worked for me. Then comes to important thing as a part of our journey was the questions we asked for ourselves. You know, I believe if you don't question something, it's not complete. If you're not able, if someone's not questioning something, it's not complete. So I follow this thing in my company, and a lot of my team members that are working with me also follow it now, after a long time. Is we question everything. We question if something works, we question why it works, and if something doesn't work, we question why it doesn't work. And if we want to do something, we question why we do, and if we don't want to do something, we question why we don't want to do. So questioning has been, it's a culture of my company, I can say. I try and question everything that we do and everything that we come across. So the first few questions that I asked myself, and I asked my team as well, when we are, of course, I've got some team of obviously join me, in the due course. So three main questions I want to talk about today here: the who, the what, and the how. The questions seem quite simple, but it took me almost 6 months to answer these three questions. So there's definitely a lot more than what it shows here on the screen. The who is basically, who am I doing this for, or who is going to, or who has the problem that I'm trying to address, or who can benefit from the opportunity that I'm trying to address. And what am I doing to address that problem, or what am I doing to grab that opportunity, and how am I going to do it. How am I going to put my solution out there that will grab the opportunity. So these are the three main questions that I asked myself, and like I told, it took me 6 months to answer these, and I've answered them wrong. And it took me another 6 months to realize I've answered them wrong and come onto the right path. But that's startup journey for you. So again, like I told, who is the problem for? What is our solution? What is our solution for that problem? And how will we make money from that? So the who, when I answered, gave me customers. So those are the people that face this problem, and those are the people who are our customers. So to give you a bit of an example, I'm going to dive a little bit again technical here, just to establish some context. But we as a company, what we do essentially is we build satellite intelligence systems, and these systems are fast, able to process data in space, and also real time. So that's what we build. Now, when we try to answer the question who, one area that we identified who is going to benefit or who is this problem for is emergency management and military and national security. So if we remember the recent incidents that happened in US with the wildfire, and of course Australia has always had a history of wildfires, that could be one of the use case, or that could be one of the who will be benefited or who has this problem right now. Where of course this is another place I think Australia has to work on. Is right now the only way that bushfires are reported is by physical presence there and by someone looking at it and calling up emergency and saying, "Hey guys, there's a fire out there." So that's how the bushfires are first identified right now in Australia. And surprisingly, that is how the bushfires are also wildfires are all also identified in US. So there's no one actually predicting or observing or trying to detect anything in real time, or there's no one actually being able to do it at this point. And of course, if US Department of Defense has something secretive about it, then I'm not aware of it. But the public information says that's how it's done. So that's how we identified our customers. Our customers for satellite intelligence is emergencies, emergency responders, government that manages these emergencies, and also national security and military implications. Being able to secure your geography, secure your borders. So we had a recent interesting conversation with National Security Agency of India. Um, Many of you, I don't know if anyone has watched here, but there's a famous Indian movie which basically shows how Indian military was able to identify some terrorist groups in Pakistan and just blast them off. They used a technology which is basically what we're building, and they just imaginated it. How like Interstellar, Christopher Nolan said this is how black hole might look like, and then the telescope, James Webb telescope, has shown yes, that is a black hole. So we're trying to realize that kind of a figment of imagination to a reality. We're building that system which can actually identify such establishments, locate them, characterize them, and assist the military in actually taking an action on them. So we're just trying to realize a figment of someone's imagination into a reality, and that's what we're building. So that's how we identified our customers. Okay, these are our customers. These are the people that have the problem. These are the people that have a problem of lack of intelligence, lack of reliable, actionable insights, and lack of faster data. So today, if you see any constellation provider, any satellite provider in the market, takes at least 24 or if not 48 hours to provide data to the end user. And by then, I think in these kind of circumstances, you know, if I'm talking about a wildfire, at least half of the target area of half of the danger zone is burnt off in that 48 hours. So there's no point in giving you that data, and you don't want to study something that's already happened and then just tell them that this is how it happened. You want to prevent it, or you want to take an action right there while it's happening to ensure it's not causing lives. It's not making, it's not making people lose their lives. So that's what we are trying to do here, and that's how we identified our customers, the who, and of course the what. Our product is a constellation service that we are offering to our customers, and we're building this constellation in such a way that it could be deployed just on a web app. So I can sit here if I mean, I wouldn't be doing this, I swear, but if I want to, I can sit here and scan some enemy territory and give you the locations of foreign military establishments. Or I can sit here, I can open up the web app, observe for Australian bushfires. Let's say if there's some problem happening in Sydney, I can open up the data cube that looks at the Sydney map, and I can tell you what's going on there, or what I can even at some point I can even tell you if there's going to be a bushfire there. So that's how we are developing the product. That's how accessible we are trying to make it, and from military perspective as well, we are trying to deploy it in such a way that you can hook the whole system onto a caravan on the back of a military car and drive it anywhere in the forward post, because military wouldn't have the flexibility to open up a laptop in a battlefield. So that's what we're building particularly for them as well. So that's how we're building the products. So once we identified the who, once we know what is their problem, and that's how we're tailor making our products for the who, which is our customers. Now, how we make money is our business model. So like I've explained, we have web app based interface, which we charge the customers quarterly based for the target area that they want to observe using our constellation. And that's how we built a business model around it. All of this took me 5 minutes to make and 1.5 years to realize. And let's not forget one of the important contribution and one of the important factors of my success so far, my team. I always like saying this: I'm the most dumbest person in my company, and I'm proud of it because I've built the team that is very, very intelligent than anyone else, I believe. So I like to say great businesses are built by great teams. Great ideas come from individuals, but great ideas are converted to businesses by great teams. So I like to tag my team as well, although they're not here. They might be watching it later on YouTube, so I don't want them to, feel like I didn't thank them. But yeah, I want to thank my team heartfully, not just for the sake of doing it. I want to thank them heartfully for joining me. Like I told, I didn't have anyone in the beginning, but now I have a suit of talents that are, ready to go. I feel like they are my military army or something like that. So it doesn't mean I'm keeping them like that. So yeah, of course, a pro tip: if someone's looking to build the company, first build a team. Then I want to talk about transition to product. So this is the research we did. These are the questions we asked. Now we need to bring this out into the market. I'll tell you one experience I had when I was talking to, in an early stage, when I was talking to one of who we thought is our potential client. I was sitting in front of the representative from that organization, redacted, and I realized I've done everything wrong, which is the point of that 6 months I've told you, which took me to answer the questions. After sitting in front of them, I've realized everything is wrong. They don't need that, or they don't need this. They don't need it in this way. They want it in some other way. Maybe the problem is right. Maybe my solution is right, but the way I'm giving the product to them is wrong. So that's when it made me realize that transitioning an idea into research into product is key. Research is something that is abundance of knowledge. Research is, I call it research is an ocean. Like I can show you here. Research is an ocean of knowledge. You can do 100 number of things from single research paper. That's how all the PhD students are working hard. All my team is PhD students, so I want to give a shout out to the PhDs. They're working hard on giving that knowledge, but all of that knowledge needs to be transitioned in a right way into a product. And how do we do it? There's a process that I have observed, or the process that I have deduced from my learnings and from my experiences that work for me. So I think this is not something that I'm saying works, but this worked for me. So first thing I did after identifying the problem, after identifying what to do, we prototyped. And like I told in the beginning, prototype is not working with brushless motors, but we prototype business products, business models. We tried these prototypes with various clients. We went to who we thought is our client. We presented this kind of a product model, this kind of a product. We realized it didn't work. We came back, we did the work again, we changed the way we pitched the product. We changed the product completely, actually, at some point. And then we presented to the client. At some point, it did work. So prototyping is a big part of realizing all of that knowledge into a reality. Then comes the risk management and market fit. You've noticed I've highlighted that in the red because that's what I'm going to emphasize on after the slides. But Risk management and market fit is, I'd like to call it as a maker or killer of your product. You either make your product best in this part, in this phase, or you either kill your product. So that's why I've highlighted red, because it's a danger zone, and it's also a very important part of your whole journey from, or at least it has been an important part of our journey from realizing research into a product and then taking it into the market. We'll get to it in a bit. It needs a lot more specific emphasis. But then after that comes validation, which we've been doing all along the way. But validation with the customers, validation with diversified customers is also something that we've been trying to focus on, and I believe which works most of the cases is because we want to be able to diversify our customer groups eventually. We don't want to be saturating our customers. As a company, we don't want to be in a point where, okay, we've made $1 million and that's all we can make. So we want to be diversifying our customer pool. We want to be diversifying our clients that we want to work with. So diversified customer validation is something that as of now, we're going through as well, and we've been doing for a while now. And then comes your product. That's when your product is actually liked by the customers. That's when you get paid for, and that's when you get making money. And that's when we started making money. That's when we had our first client, Esper. Like Ray mentioned, we have a first client from Australia itself. Thanks to Australia again. I've roamed the whole, all the buzz cities of space, and then I found client in my home. So yeah, so that's how we realized we took our product to the first client, and that's how they're paying us $500,000. Of course, it's a subsidized cost. I'm not selling satellites for $500,000. Coming back to the part that I've left out in red, and I've emphasized on that, risk management. You see an interesting shape there. I've picked that just to make it easy to understand. It doesn't mean that there's something mathematical coming up. So I'd like to say on the left hand side, where the undermanaged risk equal to underdeveloped products, what I would like to convey here is when you don't manage the risk properly, your products are not developed. I mean, they'll definitely understand if you don't manage the risk of failure properly, your rover will not work on the site when you go there. So managing the risk, under managing the risk will eventually lead to underdeveloped products, which might not work for every customer. Might work for one, might work for two, the third one will fail. So that's what the problem comes when you undermanage the risk. And when you overmanage it, your products become obsolete. You'll never be able to get the product out in the market because there are too many constraints, there are too many restrictions, there are too many obstacles that you need to address before getting the product out. You'll never be able to get it out in time. Or by the time you get the product out, someone might have done something better than that in particular area, and then your product is not required in the market. So that's what happens when you overmanage the risk. And when you optimally manage the risk, that's when market-ready products come out, like our company. A bit of a marketing shout out there. But yeah, so okay, I believe this is something that common knowledge. Most of you might know it in a different way, or most of you are feeling like, okay, I know this. But how do we actually know that if we are over managing or under managing or optimally managing the risk? That's the question I ask myself. Okay, I know I should not over manage. I know I should not under manage. But how do I know that I'm not doing it? Or how do I know that I'm optimally managing it? So that's when I did a bit of an MBA, short term, 6 weeks MBA, kind of. So I learned business on street, so I can call that. I went out and tried to, a lot of people again published a lot of researches on risk management, business management, and stuff. I tried to study what exists out there, and I tried to talk to people who've done this before, especially in space industry, because it's a bit of a different scenario in space when it comes to risk and all that. So I realized there's one simple solution to all of this. You don't have to go worrying about crazy different strategies and stuff. There's one simple solution to efficiently know if what are you doing is correct or not. That is basically quantitative risk management. In any way or form that works for you, in any simplest method that works for you, convert the risks, the impact of the risks into numbers. Just assign some numbering and convert into numbers and put it as numbers. Because I think this is something that most of astrophysicists agree with, but human brain is biologically formed to conceive numbers faster than anything else. If I show you a number, you'll be able to grab that much faster into your brain than a word or than anything else, than a shape. So numbers are something that will give you some sense of, some sense of confidence in yourself to understand. Okay, I'll give you a small example. When we were looking into a small product, which is basically like a ADCS system for satellites. ADCS is attitude determination control system. So we were looking into which vendor to go with, and that's a huge risk associated product or a component. An ADCS failure will result in the failure of whole satellite. And then we wanted to understand how will this risk tie into the whole satellite. So what we tried to do there is assign numbers based on its impact or based on its cost of failure. So if ADCS fails, mission fails, so that's number 10. If, let's say, I've got another component, for example, I have a redundant flight computer in one of my satellites. If a redundant flight computer fails, I might lose 300,000 I invested on that, but the mission still runs. So that sits at the bottom, number 2 maybe, because there's still money losing there. So that's how we came up with a simple quantification model. Cost of failure will rank the number we give to that risk higher, and that's how we came up with a simple. We're not using any complex systems in our company for building the satellites that we build. We're using basic system. If it fails the mission, it's number 10. If it doesn't, it's number 2 or 3. That's how we quantified the risk, and that's how we made sure we are actually understanding if we are under managing or over managing or optimally managing the risks. So I would say it's a, again, coming back to a bit of a cliche statement, it's not rocket science. Okay, it is rocket science, yes, but it's not rocket science to manage risk in rocket science. Then comes the product market fit. This is something I haven't touched on until quite late in my journey. I think most of the startup founders have this problem. They get lost in their thoughts, like I did, and I feel like my product fits into the market. I feel like there's nothing else that can beat my product. But then when I go into the market, I realize I'm wrong. I've just been living in an imaginative world. And that's what happened in the previous example I've given you when I sat with the customer, where they told me that they don't need my product. That's when I realized product market fit is important. Without that, I build even, let's say, a mission that converts water to gold. Unless you need gold, it doesn't work, or it doesn't go into the market. So although the technology might be unique and technology might be great behind it, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of researchers in space technology or in any other complicated technologies are sitting in research papers in Australia and not coming out into the market. Because the product market fit is something that is very tough to identify, especially for specialized technologies like space, like green energy. It might be easier in the other domains like consumer goods and stuff like that, but when it comes to specialized technologies, it's quite hard to identify, and that's because your customers are not putting up a flag in public and saying I'm your customer. If I open up my coffee shop, the tea shop, I know who's my customer because they look at the shop and they walk in. But if I open up a space company, I don't know who's my customer. One of you sitting here could be my customer eventually. So that's where your product market fit is tough, and at the same time, it's more critical as well. And the cost of failure is higher in space. The cost of failure is higher in green energy. So your product market fit is very, very much more important in these ventures. So what is product market fit? I've used Venn diagrams here because these are the ones I understood from, easily understood when I was trying to explain to myself. So there's a pool of customer needs that exist in the market, and then there's your product, which is your, with all the value proposition that your product comes from. The market fit is the overlap between the customer needs and the value proposition. That's basically product market fit in quite simple terms. Your product, the value proposition that your product offers, has to address customer needs. And the larger the area overlaps, the better your product is going to succeed in the market. And surprisingly, this is something that I've come across. We contracted actually a market research company and paid them roughly $50,000 to understand that 60% of products in space technology right now in the market don't have that overlap. 60% of the products in the market, 60% of startups in the market are just trying to push it using some sort of grants or some sort of, a larger vision business model and stuff, but they don't have that. They don't have the overlap of customer needs and their product value proposition. So where we come from, we try to address that. We wanted to have that overlap. We wanted to make sure that our product value proposition is actually needed in the market. We need something to tackle these natural calamities. We need something to tackle military incursions. We sat down with the people who are the first responders, who have directly seen the fire 100 meters away from them or 150 meters away from them, and tried to ask them, what do you think works? What do you think, or what's your need? And surprisingly, one answer they gave me is when they go fight a fire, they don't know what they're fighting. They don't know at all what they're fighting. They don't know if the fire is natural, if there's a chemical accident in the fire, or if it's going faster, if it's going slower, if there's wind coming up, if that wind is going to blow in their direction or opposite direction. They're literally going blind. And they asked us if you can give us some insight about, okay, is that a chemical accelerated fire, or is that a natural fire, from eucalyptus oil or something? Is there a wind blowing in that region? If we are able to give them that information, it might save some lives. It might make them more confident to enter into that area. And most of the times, it actually makes a lot of difference, being able to know what you're fighting. So that's where we identified the customer needs. That's where we identified our value proposition. And I'd like to say my overlap, overlap for my company is pretty great. If not, they're just completely, subset of each other. Then actually, how do we identify product market fit? So I want to talk about a bit of a strategy here as well, which is not mine, which I just got from my studies that I did to identify what to do here. There's 6 ways or 6 steps that you need, that I did essentially, and everyone else probably needs to go through in order to identify this product market fit. The first one is establish the product goals. Product goals are something that are very important in the life cycle of building a product, because your business goal might be to make you a millionaire, but your product goal has to be to address someone's problem. Like my business goal is to make me a millionaire. I'm not gonna lie about it. I love money, but my product goal is to help someone out there who's fighting these kind of situations, or who needs this kind of intelligence. So that's where identifying the product goals is very important. And then product hypothesis. You know, I would like to call it as a product story. Every product has a story. There's no product today that we see came out into the market without a story. So building that product story is very important, and that story comprises of your opportunity, your problem, your customer, your solution, your technology, your risks, your impact, and also your business finances. So that is what we need to build: product hypothesis. Then we need to be building development prioritization. My vision is to build a satellite constellation that I can access from my phone, but we prioritize to build it in such a way that I can access from a web app first. So prioritizing what development we do first is very important. And I'm sure again the people from Monash Nova Rover will resonate with me, because there's a lot of ideas that will be on the table. A lot of people come with a lot of imagination, ideas, creativity. But prioritizing what we build first, and will that going to fit into the market or not, is quite important. This is where me and my CTO fight a lot, because I call him up after 10 a.m. or so 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. after a couple of drinks and tell him, okay, I want a lunar outpost. Why don't we build a lunar outpost? If it's money, then we'll bring it. Why don't we build a Martian rover? When Chandrayaan 3 landed, I called him up and told, why can't we launch a Chandrayaan? Why can't we launch something that to land there? So that's when the development prioritization comes into picture. What do you prioritize? What can go into the market? We are not NASA with people's money to do whatever we want. Of course, they're not doing whatever they want, but there's a standard process there. But we are a company that needs to make money to survive, and that needs to make money to long. So what do we prioritize in development process to bring it into the market? Then comes the customer feedback. This is something I have again noticed in a lot of startup founders, is they don't talk to their customers until they have a pretty product out. They feel like they want to show a pretty or a good looking product out in the market before even talking to the customers. But I did that mistake. I have waited a long time before talking to my customers, and I would say that's a mistake, because I've seen the cost of that mistake. We need to talk to the customers early in the stage, even maybe at an ideation stage. We need to ensure that we are actually going to have that customer when the product is ready. We don't want to build something based on our imagination, thinking that this is going to work for the customer. Then we realize it's not going to work. It's going to hurt a lot when that does happen. So I'd say, although it's counterintuitive to startup founders, I've seen a lot of startup founders think, I want to talk to the customer only when I can show them something good, show them something aesthetically pleasing. But no, in an industry where someone pays you a couple of $1 million for a piece of hardware, aesthetically pleasing is a secondary choice, or is a secondary priority. Although I don't mean to undermine the statement that they have given before, but when it comes to, of course, I agree with the point that sponsor us as a sponsor. If I sponsor the Nova Rover team, I would like the rover to be nice. But from a company perspective, aesthetically pleasing is something that people put on 2 or number 3 in the list. And then first comes, is it actually addressing their problem? So that's why we need to be talking to our customers. And Turns out most of the times the customers we talk to initially will become our first customers. Esper was the first ever company I spoke to when I started my company. That's the first ever company I spoke to understand if this problem exists in the market, and they are our first customer. When I spoke back then when I spoke to them, I didn't even realize they could be our customers, but they are our first customers. They are the ones who paid us the first money. So talking to the customers is very important for confidence building in a new company, for the customer to understand that you're actually doing the right things, and to trust in the company because we're new. Second thing is also important to make sure we're not wasting money. Then comes MVPs. I have this nice quotation which I'm going to put on my Instagram soon. At an early stage, take big risk with small money, and when you become $1 million company, or at a stage where you're lavish, take big risk with small amount of money. That's what what I try to do here is MVP, minimum viable product. I think the name suggests itself, but I'd like to place small bets first. I'd like to roll out small products into the market, or small propositions into the market, which can actually give me a pathway to build towards the big goals that I want to do. I do want to land it over on moon. It's not just a drunk thought I got. I do want to land, but before that, I want to launch few satellites. Bet on it, build towards that, and then land the rover on the moon. So that's basically what I realized is it's always good to build small, build fast, fail fast, learn fast, and keep going. So that's a strategy I think will work. Doesn't matter which kind of industry we are in. It worked with my food and beverage as well. We started small with a 50 square meter store, and today I have like 4 stores, each roughly about 250 square meters, and I own 2 of them. So we start small, we build fast. Even if we break fast, we learn fast, and then we go forward in the process. So that's why I say start with small bets, or at least I'd like to start with small bets. And then comes measuring market traction. Measuring market traction is as simple as seeing how many people liked your LinkedIn post. LinkedIn post is something that you're just putting out to say that you're doing this. In the same way, being able to understand how many people liked your pitch is measuring traction, for an early stage company at least. I mean, I don't have product in the market which has thousands of users which can measure my traction. I have a product that only 1 or 2 groups from a nation uses. But being able to understand how is it going to relate to the stakeholders, and if they are liking it, if they are resonating with the product, is my market traction. And especially in deep tech companies, I believe that's what is going to happen. Deep tech companies don't have hundreds and thousands of customers, unless if you're building an AI app that competes with Facebook, like Threads. But most of the deep tech companies, especially that work with hardware, don't have hundreds of customers. So at that point, your market traction is the satisfaction of your stakeholders, is the resonance of your stakeholders. And your stakeholders involves your customers, your community in which that deep tech is going to play a role, your industry that you're going to impact with that deep tech, anything that comes after that. So understanding their feelings about your product, understanding their resonance with your product, and being able to understand if they do like it or not at a very minimum. That's what I see as a measurement of my market traction. It's a very interesting story I'd like to quote here. I was in a meeting with National Security Agency of India again last month, where I was sitting with a brigadier general who's almost equivalent to like a very high-ranked army officer who might have been in a war or something like that. I've pitched him for about 35 minutes, the longest pitch I've ever done for my product, for my company. After 35 minutes of my pitch, he asked me one question: do you like your product? He asked me if I like my product. And I told, yes, I like my product because I'm building it. If I don't like it, you're not going to buy it. Then he asked me, okay, what made you like your product? I told, I like my product because apart from the fact that I'm building it, I like my product because it's going to change how people live, or try to throw all the buzzwords around, saying that, it impacts life, it impacts security, it gives confidence to Indian people that their borders are secure and everything. But the brigadier told me he's going to give me a contract just only because of the reason that I like the work that I did with the product, not because of all the buzzwords that I put around. So being able to resonate that with the customer, being able to make your customer or make your client like your product because of the work that went into the product, is very important, as much as its use cases are. Because even if the use cases are important and doable, that brigadier could have gone to his team or anyone in the Indian space ecosystem and asked to build a system like this because they've got money. They could have asked anyone else to build a system that I've just pitched him without signing an NDA, and he's legally allowed to do that. But he did put money in me. He did trust me because I like the work that I do, and he likes the work that I do. So I think that is very important to be able to resonate with the customer or a client. So all right, that's basically the important part of my presentation. Yes, I've realized. So cold pizza. So okay, I'm going to wrap up on one note. Entrepreneurship is, let's say, deep tech entrepreneurship is at least not something that one size fits all. Everyone's journey is unique. Everyone's challenges are unique. Everyone's experiences are unique. All we can do is learn from what people like me tell. uh, might be, just learn and just take some notes, or if not, just remember, or if not, just spend some time and eat some pizza. But learn from people, learn from what people like me tell on these kind of platforms, and try to use that knowledge to face your own challenges in your unique way. And I want to end on a note: don't be afraid or don't be hesitant to do something different. Even if I'm saying that this is how it works, don't be afraid to do something different to this. That's how I want to end my talk today. Thank you for the time. And yeah, I'll take some questions now.
Thank you for the talk. I just have one quick question. AI on satellites for national security sounds like very risky, ethical minefield. Have you planned for any of that? Yeah.
That's a great question. AI in general is also, not just for national security, but for any application. AI poses a lot of ethical ambiguity in the market at this point. I'm going to answer a bit technically to you. So basically, this is more of a problem from the client's perspective as well. So when they're investing, or when a client is investing into AI for national security, we have something. It's a joint effort. So we and the client work together in order to put framework, that's human-centered framework, in place that can actually, I wouldn't call assess, but that can actually understand what AI is outputting, or that can actually give a green tick to what AI is saying, if it's good or not, if it's bad, or if it's ethical or not. And that's what we call human in the loop process. So we're not doing human on the loop where, you just fire up something and you expect the whole thing to run by itself. Or, we are not, at least in the area where human involvement is completely minimized. We're doing something, we run the project and we run our software codes, or we run our entire architecture using human in the loop approach, where there's a human checkpoint at every, or at a reasonable stages, or at reasonable platforms, which basically ensures all of this ambiguity around ethical practices, around reliability of information from AI for national security, and also accuracy of this information, and also any vulnerabilities on this infrastructure is actually monitored by humans. So that's what we call human in the loop system. With India, that's what we're implementing. So I'd like to say, as a part of our work with what we're trying to do with India, we're also starting a new initiative in India, which basically targets ethical, or which basically works for ethical practices in AI, which starts from this project. So this is going to be like a birthplace for that committee in the government, which we are, training the initial sort of people, and we are trying to establish that framework. And again, one more place where things might get a bit more sociologically impacted. But yeah, that's basically what our approach is, using a human in the loop process for ensuring there is a human involvement, and ensuring it's not left to AI completely. And again, as one more thing I want to emphasize is, AI is a tool. AI is not everything. AI is not something that can take over the world. It will never, trust me. AI is a tool, and a tool in wrong hands can be dangerous, but a tool in right hands can also be useful. So as long as we're looking at AI as a tool and ensuring these kind of human in the loop processes are there to check what's going on, and to ensure reliability is high and ethical practices are maintained, I think we'll be good. I hope that answers the question.
I think maybe we'll wrap it. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks a lot, Preetham. Thank you.